All right. So today with the Metal Pit, my name is Ken, and I'm here with Lawrence McRory. He is the lead singer of F.K.U, and that is Freddy Krueger's Underwear. So I'm very excited to talk to you today, Lawrence, about your upcoming album and stuff that you got going on in your life as a musician and a singer and and everything else that's involved in this genre, as we so to speak. I'm just gonna
Hey,
ask
man.
right off the bat though, like you must be one really busy guy, based on the fact that you have FKU, you have Darkane. I also just recently discovered that you're in Blackscape as a singer in that band as well. So I thought, okay, that's like three bands, plus you're a sound engineer, producer. You own Rory Sound Studios. How do you find the time to do all this?
I ask myself that question every day. No, actually, this year last year, I've been kind of feeling that, I've got a lot going on and it's kind of hard to, I should probably slow down a little bit. But, um, my main thing is, my main job basically is the music production business that
Right.
I own, where I mostly mix and do mastering for bands. And the bands that I have, FKU and Darkane, are not, well, we're professional, but we're not professional in the sense that we work with the band full
Right.
time.
Right.
So
Right.
the band is kind of more like an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Because if you're not at the level where you're working all the time, it usually costs more than than you earn from having a band. So you do it for the love of it, because we've, especially for FKU, we've had this band for so long. And
That's
I mean
right.
Darkin as well, of course, had the band
Mm.
so long. It's just like, yeah, we love doing it. So that's why I try to fit everything in there, and as much as possible.
Yeah, no, fair. That's totally understood. I do have one quick question about it though. Um, what? So you have the two bands. So you're in Darkane, you're in FKU. What's how do you, I guess, prioritize what band comes first? I mean, I know you Darkane
Mm,
released an album in 2022, and now you've got your
mm,
upcoming album here for FKU. So
mm.
what's gonna be the priority for you this year with the two bands?
Yeah, I mean, so far there hasn't really been a problem. There hasn't
Mhm.
really been an issue since the bands aren't touring
Right.
that much. I mean, in some cases it's kind of not by choice, but some I guess with the bands we would like to tour more, but maybe it's not possible for various reasons. So I'm kind of, I prioritize the band that is active at the moment. So right now it's FKU because we have an album coming out in a couple of weeks and are doing shows. So I mean, just try to make sure that all the bands aren't doing their like cycles at the exact same time. So that means I don't have to prioritize. So it's just
Right.
like,
I got you.
I have this now, and if something were to clash, it's just like first come first serve.
Right.
If one band has something booked and another band, it's like, yeah, shame. We will have to reschedule that to another date because this
Mhm.
is already booked. So it's, for the time being, it's worked out, for all these years. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I was always wondering because like I'm a fan of both bands, and it's great that you're able to like go back and forth to sing in both bands.
Yeah.
So it will lead me to one question about FKU since this is what we're talking about today. Now the seeds I was reading online. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading that you guys had originally thought about doing this back in 1987, but the band didn't become a reality until 1999 when the first album came out. So, was there any reason for that? Was it just because you had an idea and just decided 10 years later to finally erect that concept into an actual full-fledged band?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'm speaking for the two guys that formed the band now, because I was actually 10 years old in '87. So
Gotcha.
yeah, but those guys, the guitarist and bassist Pat and Pete, they they had their own bands doing some stuff. I think Pat had a thrash band called Midas Touch, which was kind of happening. You know, they recorded an album, and so they talked to each other like, I mean, we want to do something that is a bit more fun, a little bit more tongue in cheek, maybe, because they were kind of looking at SOD and that kind of thing, you know. And we want a band like that. That would be fun because their own bands were like dealing with politics and stuff, you know, in the lyrical concepts, you know. So they wanted something that was a bit more fun. So they started F.K.U. and started playing with a drummer, and they got in a friend to sing who was like this crazy Mexican chef guy who also played like American football, and he sang, you know, for a couple of rehearsals, and they thought it was fun and everything, but it didn't really, you know, it didn't really evolve into something until 10 years later. They were like, hey, man, it was a lot of fun. We should do that again, you know. And at the same time, I moved to their town where I live now and met them, and they were like, this guy's a singer, maybe he could be interested in doing F.K.U. with us, you know, after all these years. So that's why, you know, it took 10 years for us to actually become a real active band, you know.
Gotcha. Of course. So I was also reading that with this new album, you guys feel that this is your best work yet as a band. What was the feeling going into it? Like, how come you had that feeling that this was going to be the best piece of work you guys done or doing, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, that opinion, I understand, is totally up to the person who's listening to it. But the feeling for us, and as you asked, the feeling going in was like, we had a lot of songs actually, and then we felt like we usually have a lot of songs on the album. They're not that long, and there are a lot of them. So some songs kind of get lost, you know, in between, and some songs you never get to play live. And we thought, like, let's do something different now. Let's choose like the best songs that we like the most and focus on them and see if they could be a little bit better. So we trimmed the fat and everything, and when we did that, we thought like, man, this is sounding awesome, and we had just so much fun during the process. I did the whole recording and production, so we did it on our own, you know, time when we could do it. So just everything surrounding it, and just the feeling that, you know, obviously, I mean, for the pandemic, we hadn't played live, you know, barely done a lot at all, you know, during at least 2 years. So I think it was a feeling like, finally, let's do this. You know, everybody was just so psyched to be doing this again. And when the songs were finished, we're like, this is the best stuff we've ever done, obviously. And I think every band should have that, you know, feeling going into it. There's no point, you know, making an album if you don't feel like you're doing your best work, you know. And we always try to do something that is a bit different from the album before, because we released the album 1981, and we thought we're gonna have like fast-paced, intense, punky vibes, just kind of a little bit raw recording, and just have a whole bunch of energy. And now we felt like, let's just make it more, you know, sleek sounding and have a bit more riffy, you know, just take the pace down a little bit and just like be like a headbanger of an album, you know. So
that's a really good album. On our Metal Pit podcast, we do like every week we focus on an album, and we actually did that album at Halloween, talked about it, got together. So yeah, it's a great album. I absolutely
I saw that.
I
saw that on YouTube.
We love that album to death. We love the fact that it's based on horror films. So this could lead into a really good question for you. Who on that album in 1981? Now, obviously, we know 81 was an iconic year for horror films that became iconic over the years. Who picks the films? Did you guys do it was it like you who did it? Was it other members in the band? Did you guys all get together and decide, let's make songs based on what particular horror movie? I was just curious, because there's a very wide list of films.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in the band loves horror. We're on board. We watch, you know, everything. But there's one guy who's the biggest freak in the band, and that's Pat, our bass player. And he's the one with the big collection, you know, all the old VHSs and everything. and he gets really nerdy. You know, he reads about these movies, he reads books, and knows everything. You know, he knows all the trivia and stuff like that, and he
Right.
consumes like horror magazines and podcasts and everything. So he's usually the guy that comes up with all the horror stuff, and he
Okay.
actually had this idea for 81 for a long time. Is like, let's just make a concept a tribute album to the best year in horror. So
Right.
he picked those movies, and it wasn't hard, you know, because I mean, so many so many, you know,
Yeah. Great
movies
year.
on
Great
that.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a really,
So I
really good
mean,
year.
yeah, so that's all his thing. And when he told us about it, we was like, yes, that's such a good. And we when we write a song about a horror film, we usually try to do a title that is a little bit, you know, fun. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like on this album we have Harvester of Horror, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, because you play with a horror film,
Mm-hmm.
which is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and you play with metal, which is obviously a Metallica
Yeah.
song, Harvester of Sorrow.
Right.
So
Right.
we
Right.
kind of like, yeah, we like to do that horror and the metal thing and just
Yep. Yep.
combine it. But you know, on that album, we thought like, let's just not do that. Let's just call the song what the movie is, just straight
Yeah.
up, and everybody will just know what it is about. So we had a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell. You could tell listening to the songs that it's great that you wrote lyrics. And I know during our podcast we discussed like what are they talking about? I'm like, well, and I knew the movies really well because I'm also a
Yeah.
horror fanatic too. So I could just tell, oh yeah, yeah, I know what this is about. So I'm sitting there telling the guys like, well, this film, what happened in this film, and these guys got
Yeah.
lyrics that perfectly tell you what happened in that film. Such a great, it's such a great idea for like a metal album in my mind to sort of do the two genres
Yeah.
into one. I love that. I totally love that. But I
Cool.
do have
Thank you.
another question about F.K.U though. Are you guys going to be playing live a lot? Because I'm seeing stuff on Facebook about your live shows coming up. Are you planning on any extensive tours for 2024 at all? Or
I mean, here's the thing. Nowadays, stuff has to be planned so far in advance, you know.
right,
And when you've been gone for, I think it was 6 years since we did 1981, and you kind of get it kind of gets you kind of get lost a little bit, you know, with the whole business side of things and booking shows and everything. So now we have a lot of Swedish shows coming up this year, and
okay,
but the things that we want to go and tour a lot more. We want to go play in Europe a lot more. We're just now, you know, talking to a booking agent to get things going, because we want to play so much now on this album. It's like,
right,
um we're gonna do whatever we can, basically. But you know, it's as you know, especially like a lot of people like come to the US and stuff, you know, that's one of the hardest things to do for a European band, because it's like it's so difficult to
yeah,
come and play. It costs so much money, and the visas and everything. Have so many friends that have, you know, had to cancel tours because, you know, embassy visa problems and stuff like that. So it's yeah, yeah. I mean, we want to do more, and we're trying as much as we can, because this we feel like there's a lot of great, you know, live songs on this album that we want to perform. So we're
yeah.
basically, yeah, taking any show that we can find. Basically, that's what we're doing now, and we're hoping it'll bring us because far and wide, and we're looking, you know, way ahead into 2025. You know, what can we do there? You know, just try
Okay,
to do as much as possible.
okay. And I guess the same goes for Darkane, because I don't think I've ever seen you guys tour here or any like in say North America at all. But
Where are you? You're in North America. Yeah, it was a long time ago with Darkane, and
okay,
I've never sang. I never sang with Darkane in the States, but
right, right, yeah.
the two previous singers did. But that was a long time ago. That was
Oh,
like
okay,
2000
okay.
and yeah, 2008. I think was the last time. Yeah,
Oh wow, yeah. So yeah, it'd be
yeah.
great to see you guys to see Darkane play live because I love the style of music and it's such a
Oh, cool,
contrast
man.
from F.K.U because it's more
Mm,
like thrashy, punky, fun stuff, and then you get the more melodic death metal sound of Darkane. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so I like the fact that you're very versatile as a singer and you're able to sing two sort of similar styles but a bit different. And what about Black?
yeah.
What about Blackscape though? I'm just a bit curious because I only just discovered this band like just like a few days ago. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were singing in Blackscape. How did
Yeah,
that come about?
cool. Blackscape is actually a friend of mine
Mhm.
who's the drummer, and the other guy in the band is the guitar player, and they made this album a long time ago. Started working on it, started recording, and they didn't know what it was going to be, and along the way they got this name Blackscape, and thought, and just said, we need to release this somehow, we need to find a singer. And after I got to know this guy Thomas, the drummer, I mean, he asked me if I wanted to. They asked me if I wanted to sing on this album. So
Okay.
this, and I heard it, and I really loved the music. And I was like, I have too many bands. I can't do another band. No, but then I just liked the songs. I just liked the songs too much. They were so
Yeah.
good, and I was like, I could really hear myself sing on it. And the guitarist Stefan, who wrote all the music, he also wrote the lyrics and kind of some vocal ideas. And I was listening to that. It's like, that is perfect. That is exactly how I would sing it if I was coming up with all the vocal lines and stuff. So I just said, yeah, let's do it. And it's more of a studio project, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
I don't see us playing live anywhere. And that's one of the reasons where I felt that I could do this, because it wasn't going to be an active band that was going to be doing a lot of working. And I mean, you never know what happens in the future, but I don't think there's gonna be any live stuff done. But maybe
Okay.
if they decide to write some more music, I'll probably be up for it. I
Cool.
told them, like, don't see me as a permanent member, because I don't really have time.
Right.
But if you're going to do some other stuff, I'm probably going to be interested in singing it, because I really love the style that they do. So
Yeah, yeah, no,
so
I could see that. I've been listening to some of the songs too, and it's pretty. I really like it. It's actually really good.
yeah,
So
cool,
I know when
thanks.
we were talking before the interview, on email, I was mentioning about Darkane. Yeah, I Darkane is a band I really like. How I bought the last album and I've heard it. It's really really good. How did that come about? Did you? Because I know that was sort of on the heels of the pandemic as well. Were you guys recording anything during the pandemic, or did you do it like right after? I was just curious because I know a lot of artists struggle with that during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, Darkane was, I mean, just like F.K.U, but maybe even more so a band that doesn't work actively all the time on the
Right.
band. Everybody has prioritized to have a more normal life and a normal job than being full-time musicians. So
Hmm.
so it kind of happens when it happens. And this, I mean, some of these songs on Inhuman Spirits were written a long time ago,
Okay.
and some of them were written just before recording. So
Right.
it's a mishmash of all the stuff. So I mean, it was a slow process, and everybody recorded themselves and then send everything to me to kind of
Right.
put everything together. So that meant that Peter, the drummer, he started recording maybe the first song, and then a year
Hmm.
later the last song. So it was an
Hmm.
ongoing process during the pandemic and kind of coming out of the pandemic. So yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it was a long, slow process, which it usually is nowadays, because
Yeah.
everybody's getting a little bit older, and it's taking longer time to get stuff
Yep.
done. But
Yep.
as long as the band is still existing and active, that's the main thing, because we love the band, and we know the band has a lot of fans as well, because they write us all the time. So it's yeah, it's great.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Um,
Yeah.
Now with the pandemic though, I guess were you able to cope with being like in lockdown? Because I know in here in Canada we pretty much spent a lot of time in lockdown for almost a good year, and it was very frustrating for a lot of people. How was it for you
Mm.
during that period of your life?
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard somebody mention Sweden, in the
Yeah.
pandemic, but because we were kind of mentioned a lot in media all over
Mhm.
the world, because of we didn't have a lockdown at all,
Oh, okay.
because yeah, not the word lockdown as in the government telling you that you shouldn't go out
Right.
unless, it was just what they said over here is just like, use caution, stay at home, and work it from home if you can, you know, and use hand sanitizers and try not to be in crowded, you know, areas. And they obviously they shut down all the big events and everything. Yeah, so you shouldn't go, and they kind of banned big gatherings, but we still had, you know, all the freedom in the world to go out and do whatever we wanted, you know, to be out, you know, in the streets, walk around, which I've learned that in some countries you couldn't do that, which seems like crazy to me, because, you know, if you're on your own out in the, you know, forest or whatever, who cares, you know?
Yeah,
But
that's true.
yeah, but anyway, so we had it kind of easy in that sense, but you know, I don't think anybody kind of enjoyed, you know, the whole the whole thing, since it, you know, put all our favorite hobbies, you know, our favorite thing, you know, metal and playing together and playing at shows and going to shows, everything kind of disappeared. So of course it was rough, you know, and we took it very seriously as well. A lot of Sweden, you know, we like to, if the government tells us that you probably shouldn't go out and be in big crowds, we're going to listen to that. That's what we do. That's just ingrained in our behavior here. So everybody kept to their own families, and we didn't even meet with the bands, you know, for you know, at least a few months, until we all, you know, kind of felt that, yeah, I mean, it's probably fine as long as nobody's sick. I'm feeling like, yeah, have a cold. So we started getting together again, and it was fine, you know. So yeah.
Okay, so that's quite different of a contrast what it was like here in Canada, but
yeah,
but you know, we survived, right?
it
So
is what it is.
yeah, for sure. So the title of the album, The Horror and the Metal, who came up with the title or decided on that title for the album?
That would probably once again be Pat, our bass player. We talked about a couple of titles, and we landed on this because we felt that we didn't want to do a super, you know, super specific concept like 1981. We're just like, what should we do then? If we're not going to do that, just make a collection of really great F.K.U songs. We just said, let's just double down, and, you know, if people weren't, if people weren't, you know, clear about what we were all about before, then they definitely will be now, because we're calling the album The Horror and the Metal, because that's all we care about in this band, you know. So we felt it was just the title, and we liked that it sounded so great, like The Horror and the Metal, not horror and metal. It's just we just liked the sound of it. And then we liked how it looked when we wrote it down. So that's the title. Let's go for it, you know.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
It did. Yeah, so not much thought about it this time. It's just like we did whatever. It just felt right, you know.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's perfectly that the title says it all. So when I got the news that you guys are putting out a new album, I was like, oh wow, this is great. Horror and the Metal. This is exactly what I want from this band. So
yes,
I mean,
yes, that's what.
Yeah.
That's what you signed up for when you started listening to F.K.U. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've yet to hear the whole album. I've only heard a couple songs, but I did see one song title which I'm assuming refers to Texas Chainsaw. I just don't remember the song title offhand.
That's a sneaky one, because it actually it's gonna make you think, but it isn't actually, and I'll tell you what it is. There's a film called Pieces, and the tagline of the film is, "You don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre." So that's why that's the tagline of the movie. So we're just like, don't have to go to Texas. We stole just the tagline. So that's what it's about. And so we like to be sneaky about that, because even I thought for a long time this is about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Pat was like, no, it's about Pieces. I'm like, oh man, how did I miss that? You know, so yeah.
Hey, that's cool. I'm glad to know that too, because that was my first thought when I saw the song title. I was like, oh, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's really cool. But so does Pat write all the lyrics, or do you guys share with the lyrics? Like, how does that process work for you?
I'd say he writes, you know, at least 75% of the bulk of the lyrics, you know, and then we work through it together. And and he usually focus on these that are about horror films. And I usually kind of chime in on some other stuff that is kind of like, because we either do a song about a horror film, or we do a song about that we're F.K.U. and we love horror metal and we love to mosh and we love to thrash and blah blah blah. You know, just a fun lyric like that. You know, obviously taking from bands like Exodus, doing the song Toxic Waltz, you know, a song about moshing and banging your head. So we kind of do either that or from a horror film. And I usually write, you know, some of these other that aren't really, you know, based on horror films. But this time on this album, I actually wrote the last song, "You Are Who You Eat," which is based on Ravenous,
Right. The
the
movie.
cannibal movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And you
Cool.
know, and our drummer Emp, who has really, you know, been a great addition to the band these last 10 years, and done he writes some lyrics as well. So it's a lot more of a collaborative effort now. But you know, the bulk of it comes from Pat. He's the catalyst, you know, that comes up with which songs and everything, you know, that which films that we should write about.
Okay, that's really good. I really like that. And I got just a couple more questions for you. Like,
Sure.
let's just go for the horror side of it. So, what is are you like? So, first of all, I'll couch it this way: are you into like the modern horror? Because a lot of people talk about, you know, Art the Clown, and that's kind of a really big gore fest these days. Do you like the classic horror films? Do you like modern horror films? Where do you stand on that?
Um, I, I like the classic films most because it's like it's a bit of nostalgia. Those are the films that I grew up with. You know, my favorite horror films are like the first Evil Dead and the second one, and The Shining, and The Thing, and you know, and stuff like that, and a lot of Carpenter, and you know, a lot of Wes Craven stuff, and so I love that, you know, and also even older. I mean, The Omen and stuff like that, and some late '70s stuff. But then there were a lot of years where I didn't enjoy the modern horror at all.
Okay.
I think it's not until, you know, now basically just the last 7 or 8 years or something, there's been actually a lot of cool movies coming out. I mean, you know, like, I mean, stuff like Hereditary, and there's a film, you know, awesome film called Get Out, and
Get Out, yeah.
yes, it's so many I can't even, you know, but I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming out now. But I think during the 2000s, I mean, the whole everything got caught up in the whole Scream, you know, generation thing, the Scream horror films, which kind of like I didn't really like it, enjoy it too much, but it also kind of brought horror back, you know, to being like a. So yeah, I mean, I like the really old stuff, and I like a lot of the new stuff as well. I kind of embrace anything. I'll watch anything and see if it's any good. The problem with horror is that nowadays, when a film was a bit bad in the 80s, it was still good. But when it's bad now, you have to turn it off. It's kind of it seems like they can do movies so cheap nowadays that it's
That's
just
true.
they don't have any substance. At least the old films had some kind of vibe, you know, some kind of raw, you know, quality to it. But you know, when a horror movie is kind of bad, I can tell within like 5 minutes that this isn't going to be a good movie, you know. And sometimes I'll just, you know, watch it anyway, and sometimes I just turn it off, you know. But it is what
depending
it
if
is.
you want to waste your time doing that for like say 2 hours watching the film. Did you
Yeah.
did you watch any of the Art the Clown films? Did you see any of those movies? Like there was two that came out
No,
previously. Okay, you haven't seen them.
I haven't seen any of them.
Okay, I was
So
curious because I reviewed a band called Morgue Terror just recently, and their band it's like extreme death metal, but their concept is based on basically Art the Clown. So I was just curious because it seems to me that might be the next generation of kids and bands and people getting into that kind of music. So I was wondering if you actually seen the movies or not.
I
Pretty
haven't.
gory.
I'll have to check it out, but I haven't seen it at all. Actually,
Okay.
it kind of rings a bell, but I don't know much about it. So that I actually feel kind of excited that I get a tip, because that's all I'm going on now. What people say, you know, watch this. Okay, I'll try. You know, I'll watch
Well,
it. But,
I'll say that it's extreme gore. And they're
Yeah,
very
that's fun.
they're bizarre. They're really really bizarre films. They go for the gusto in both films. The second film is a lot harder than the first film, but the characters just kind of like Freddy Krueger. It reminds me of Freddy Krueger, but like he died, the character dies, comes back to life, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's a lot kind of like a
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger to some degree, but really nasty, really nasty.
Yeah,
So
I'll definitely check it out. Absolutely. But the latest film I saw, which I really enjoyed, was like the Pearl, which is
oh yes, yes, yeah,
the prequel to X,
the
which was
X, yeah,
kind of good as well, because it kind of brings this weird gory thing to this otherwise super nice movie about. It's
yeah.
like yeah, I love that.
There are three. I think there are three films in that series. Is there not? There's a
Yeah,
third one. Yeah, yeah. There's another one.
yeah, yeah.
X Pearl, and I for some reasons it's escaping me at the moment, but there is a third film.
But that one, I don't think that one. That's the next film that's going to be released, I think. Or
Oh,
is
okay.
it
So it's not
even?
okay. Yeah, I'm a bit behind on
Yeah,
that myself. I wasn't
yeah.
sure because I've
I,
seen X and I've seen Pearl. Okay.
yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
So I think this is kind of later on, but I'm not sure. I haven't read up on it, so no.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, great. Well, Larry, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to talk about the bands and yourself, and yeah, you have a great day. And I hope someday I'll be able to see FKU live. But I buy the albums. I buy all the albums. I buy all the Darkane albums. So those are two bands that I really identify with. And yeah, so good luck with everything in the future, and have a great day, my friend.
Thank you so much, and really thank you for having me and asking me all these questions. It's always fun to talk about it. So until next time.